wrestling. Matt? You good in here? No. Nobody's on fire. Nobody's on fire. We're good. Swerve? Not so good. Welcome in. It is the wrestling. Matt, let's talk about arson, everybody, huh? That's our big topic for today. Get out your fire safety handbooks, your pamphlets, whatever you learned in school. We're talking arson. There's going to be more lawyers lining up for that one to represent Hangman. Holy hell, what an ending to Dynamite last night. Yeah, remember all that stuff? I said maybe Hangman will come back around. You know, he'll see the error of his ways and someone will talk some sense into him. Nope. At least I don't think so, right? Maybe. I don't. Like, how does he come back from this and people cheer him? Can that even happen at this point? I'll throw that out to all you right now. With the way Dynamite ended last night, what's the length of time we need to get over what Hangman did to feel okay cheering him again? Or, and I've seen people say it, yeah, Swerve broke into his house and was in his kid's room. He drove up to his house when he was leaving with his pregnant wife. Hangman's not wrong. All right. If you believe that, you really believe in that eye for an eye thing, I guess. So one of the most visually graphic, stimulating, memorable things you're ever going to see in wrestling. And I know what happened last night. I get it, recency bias. But right there, the dude sits in an old recliner living room chair next to gallons of gasoline and a drink, and he burns a man's house to the ground. Like, that might have been the calmest we've seen Hangman in months. To just be able to do that. He sat in a chair in front of his opponent, his fiercest rival's house that he just bought, and he went, I'm going to tell you all the stuff you did to me. I'm going to tell you that if you want me to choose hatred, that if you want me to choose peace, you want me to choose revenge, here's what I'm doing. And if you're listening, you know what's going on right now. You can hear that liquid. You can hear that hitting the ground around the house that you grew up in, that you bought. You can hear that. Swerve knew there was nothing Swerve could do but watch. And he was helpless to what was going on as Hangman did the walk that he filmed himself for, looks like, around the house, cutting a scathing promo with the proper amount of intensity, with the proper amount of intent, staring right into the camera. Swerve probably knew what was going on the second he saw Hangman there. At least that's how he sold it in the ring. And he sat in that chair, and he lit the match, and he continued to talk. He stretched it out that much more. He stretched out the pain that much more. Because you knew it was coming. Swerve knew it was coming. And he just held it there. As he continues to cut a promo, knowing what's about to happen, he continues to talk right at the camera, holding the match that is about to engulf Swerve's childhood in flames. And then just tosses it to the side and takes a drink and sits there. Doesn't flinch, doesn't look back, doesn't make sure his handiwork has been completed successfully. He knew. Every bit of that was a premeditated act of violence, of arson. And if you want a way to sell a go-home angle of a match, Not everybody can do that. I talked about blood the other day, about how I think WWE can bring that back and has brought that back, and you put it in the right spots, it makes sense. You can't do what they did last night. You can't do that more than every 5 years. To that level. You can have bloody angles. You can have turns. You could have hardcore matches. You could have MJF spew his stuff. You could do all that stuff. And there's levels of that, as there should be. But to go to the level that they went to last night, and then to immediately basically go, listen, we can't sanction anything. That's what happened after the show last night. We can't sanction anything. This is now a lights-out steel cage match. And I saw the report. I think Fife will have it. There's no doubt in my mind that's the main event of the show. And that is not a knock on Bryan Danielson or Jack Perry or Mercedes or anybody else. That, nothing can touch that. And if you don't know about lights out matches, it's very old school. It's basically AEW washing their hands of it. We're not sanctioning this. It doesn't count towards anything. This is too personal. This is too serious. This is too dangerous. They can have the match. They can have it in a steel cage, but this is only between these two. It doesn't build towards anything. The winner doesn't, find his way back into the title picture right away. This is about this being settled. It has reached an absolute breaking point. So, two things. One, I have a nitpick. The visual of Hangman sitting in that chair with the drink, with flames. It happened for... And these were the pictures they showed after the fact, but just showing. That's the idea, right? He's sitting there for maybe 5, maybe 10 seconds, and they put the graphic up of the match, which took me out of it we get it. We know what's happening. Let that image live. Don't throw a graphic over that. You can promote the shit out of it. You just stay with that. Don't take me out of that moment. Listen, it's still pro wrestling, right? I get that. All of it's pro wrestling. I saw comments I was reading. It's like, one guy could break into another guy's house and be in his kid's room and not get arrested. The other guy can go set the other, his opponent's house on fire and not get arrested. I love pro wrestling, and I agree with that statement completely. But that's exactly it. You live in that moment. Don't promote a match when a guy just lit a guy's house on fire. We know what they're doing in a couple days. I don't need the graphic. I don't need the graphic over that. That's all I needed to see. Give me Swerve losing his mind in the ring, and give me Hangman sitting in that chair. It's a nitpick. I'm just saying, keep us in the moment. We know what the match is. We know it's coming. I am all for promotion. You got plenty of time for that. But for 30 seconds, you stay on those two guys. I want Swerve's emotion, and I want Hangman's lack of give-a-fucks. B Major said it was some real cowboy shit. I think that's beyond that. I think we're beyond cowboy. I think we are somewhere else. The cowboy, that was all fun. That was what he did. That was hanging with his friends, drinking, finding it, all that stuff. This is something else. This is not the Hangman that's been mostly the beloved main character of AEW since the jump. I had a whole conversation you can watch a couple weeks ago at thewrestlingmatshow.com about Hangman's overall story arc and being the main character of AEW. If you really look at it, everything that he has done is built upon the next thing. There's callbacks to it. There's conversations about it. Hey, you used to do this. Hey, remember when you tagged with Kenny? Hey, remember when you wrestled Bryan Danielson 4 times? Hey, the stuff with Punk. hey, remember when you were in the elite, then out of the elite. And then obviously in the last year, more of a focus on Hangman and Swerve and all that. All that stuff is built upon each other. Everything that he's done, it all connects. And what I wondered on this very show was at some point someone would try to, hey, I get it. You're mad at this guy. You hate him. What he did to your family was wrong. But your focus is all over the place. You'll never get what you want out of this. I promise. And this is probably another Eddie Kingston speech in my head. If you live in that anger, you're going to live in it forever. You're never, ever, ever going to forget what happened. You're never, ever, ever going to get all of that retribution that you want. That will live with you. It has scarred you. You have to embrace that scar for what it is. To me, that could have been the Hangman redemption arc. You burn somebody's house down. I don't. Maybe pro wrestling's different these days. I've seen a couple people say. I think Nerdy Dude. I'm going to go back in the comments here. But Nerdy Dude, is it bad that I'm rooting? I'll put it up. I'm rooting more for Hangman now than I already did before. It's a good microscope or a good scope of where professional wrestling is at right now. If you did that years and years and years ago, there's no doubt Hangman is the 100% heel. That Swerve should be able to get his comeuppance on him. That's what you burn somebody's house down, you're a heel. Period. End of story. That's what that meant. You run somebody over with a car, something to that level. But I do think there's a level of appreciating where Hangman is coming from. Appreciating, maybe from a performative standpoint, what that looked like. Hangman, in a vacuum, is a low-down, vile piece of shit for burning down Swerve's childhood home. But then you see the pictures, you're like, damn, that looks badass. Holy hell, I'm going to remember that forever. I can't believe Hangman did that. Like, there's a respect level in a sick, twisted way that I get it. He went there? He really hates this guy. I knew that, but, like, he went to a different level. It's not petty. It's beyond petty. Way beyond petty. Verbal shots are petty. This is beyond petty. This is personal as it gets. Like, how does Hangman leave his house now? If you think about it. He's got to know, like, theoretically, he's got to know where Swerve is at all times. And he said, I went and looked for him. Which I like. I looked over Florida, looked over Washington. Then you told me where you were. And the thing is, as soon as that video went up yesterday, and I probably would have done it a couple weeks ago. That's just me. As soon as that video went up, the comments were there. People were making the memes. People had the pictures of Hangman, the GIFs, you name it. You knew that house was in trouble. And yet still, I think the visual representation and how it was done. And I will say this. I think his promo was so damn good. And I don't want that to get lost in this. And I'm not saying it does, but like, to hit all those notes, walking around a house, hitting that cadence, dropping himself in to that kind of character presentation. Like, it was so well done and yet comfortable in his own shoes and his own skin and walking around and doing. The execution is as good as anything AEW's ever done, from shooting it to delivery to the extent of the what you needed to get out of the angle. Like, there were people that believe he was going to burn that house down, and then he did, and everybody's like, "Holy shit, he did it!" Oh my God, they're sitting and he's just sitting in front of a house that he burned down having a drink. But I don't want that promo to get lost at how good that is. And yeah, maybe there's part of me that's like, how the hell do I how do you justify saying you're cheering for Hangman? Like, if you tried to explain that to somebody, if you're catching somebody up, you got friends coming over this weekend to watch All Out. Hey, what are we? Well, we're gonna watch this pay-per-view. Okay, what am I watching? Well, this guy about a year ago went into this guy's house and went into his kid's nursery, and the other guy's been pissed off about that ever since. But the guy whose house it was just was trying to keep him from the world title, and he couldn't do it. And then he got sent home, and then he came back, and he just wanted to stop this guy. And well, they've interacted a little bit. And then there was a stalking thing. Oh, and the other day, Hangman burned Swerve's house to the ground. I'm still rooting for him, though. It's one of those things. I saw people get mad on Tuesday when Obafemi said to Rizzo, in some cultures, women are seen and not heard. She got pissed off. People are like, you can't say that on TV. It's like, he's a heel. And yet, and by the way, acceptable because it's on a wrestling show and it's a very whatever line of a heel talking to a babyface woman, and it was whatever. She got pissed. Oba comes off as trash. That's fine. It's TV. Like anything else on TV, it's TV. And last night, someone's house got burned to the ground. Like, what an angle. Unbelievable. Which is true. It is. But it's like you're looking to cancel somebody for saying that line, and at the same time, wow, he burned his house. It's 1,000 times worse. They're both part of the show. And I'm not saying everything that is part of the show should be done. I'm not saying certain stories shouldn't be done. You shouldn't go into certain places because I don't think it's good television. You don't do racism or homophobia or sex. Not at that. You don't need it. Yeah, that could be done in movies, but these are people that are on TV all the time. It doesn't need to be a regular part. But they did arson on TV last night to sell a pay-per-view match. The imagery of it is on this channel and will be on every channel that's talking about this. It will be on every wrestling website. It is already. Those pictures, put it on a t-shirt. It's such a cool, well done angle. If you just look at it like that. If you just go, it's like judging of how good a movie or a TV show is. Well, they had this great fight scene and the acting was great. Like I think that's why people love it so much, because it's so well done. And you can't help but not appreciate it. You can't help but appreciate it, I should say. You have to. But then at the same time, if you're a fan of stuff, do you want to see Swerve lose? Do you want to see Hangman lose? I just saw Tom Green talking about his son Noli, and that's Hangman's his guy. And Noli's a kid. Like there is that element of, and this is anything in pro wrestling. And you have to have a conversation about that if your kid saw that, and that's anybody. And kind of explain that, which I know is not easy because you want to be like, hey, it's pretend. You watch movies, you watch kids shows, and somebody gets taken out, or there's ray guns, or you still got to. That's what I do for my daughter. It's just pretend. It's just part of the show. She's watching wrestling with me. They're friends. It's okay. It's just they're pretending. It's part of the TV show. I don't know if it's that easy when someone's house gets lit on fire. Nah, it's just magic. Whatever. I don't know. But the imagery, for lack of a better word, is burned into my brain. And if anything else, I can't wait to watch those two on Sunday. Cannot wait. It's a good card. We're going to preview it on this channel tomorrow. We're going to go into detail on everything tomorrow on tomorrow's episode, full all-out preview. But those, to me, are the kind of things that can kickstart a company. I thought Milwaukee was a very good crowd last night. Certainly a lot of people had gone to ROH shows where ROH had done well. Basically, the majority of the times that they went to Milwaukee, they did well. That was a good crowd last night in terms of being verbal and heard, and the audio picked it up better than last week, which I know I don't think drew as well. But last night, the crowd came through. I think something like that was done last night, that's a big sell point. Like, you want to know what that is. That is the kind of thing where you need to make sure that gets out as much as possible into the world between now and Sunday. From a social media standpoint, from repurposing those clips to all that. More than anything else in the show, that's going to sell it. That's where these guys are at. They have the material now to work with. Here you go. They had the pictures that Ryan Loco took. They're there. Push that out as much as you possibly can between now and Sunday. Because you have gold. Much like I love the Mariah May turn and the imagery that came from that and how it was executed, which gave their match a lot of juice. This from a selling standpoint is the best thing I think AEW's ever done. Just to get that reaction, to have people talking after the fact, to have people still talking today about it. You want to own the wrestling headlines for as long as you possibly can, especially on a day when you're not on. You want to take that into Friday because they have to go live with Collision. They're going live with Collision into Rampage on Friday. You want that still to be the talk of everything. You want to take that momentum into Friday for a couple extra hours of your program. You want to take it then into the weekend. They have that now. What they executed last night affords them that opportunity to do that. It's a home run. As I said, the crowd was very helpful all of last night. I thought it added to the show. I know attendance has been an issue for AEW. So, something like last night might go, I got to go to that. Or I wasn't tuned in, or I haven't been tuned in, or I haven't gone. Maybe it's time to go again. Yeah, it's good. Very, very good thing for the company. Let's talk about Okada hitting 6 months in the company. Debuted in early March as a full-time roster member. Where he stands right now, as he'll go into, as we found out last night, a fatal four-way for his Continental Championship at the pay-per-view. As of last night, with his victory over Kyle Fletcher, Okada has wrestled in 16 matches over 6 months. So a little less than 3 a month. And he'll, obviously get there in the next couple of days. 16 matches in 3 months. His singles matches, or when he won his first singles match, he won the Continental title from Eddie Kingston. He had a jobber squash match. After that, he defeated Pac at Dynasty in a great match. He defeated Dax a month later. He was in Anarchy in the Arena. He beat Ultimo Guerrero on a Collision episode. He lost to Swerve by DQ. He was in Blood and Guts. He went to a draw with Claudio. He was in the Gauntlet the other day. And he beat Kyle Fletcher last night. He has been in gimmick matches from Anarchy in the Arena to Blood and Guts to the Casino Gauntlet. He's had a decent group of challengers so far. I talked about a few guys when you make that transition over from Japan, which is just a different presentation about what their storylines are like and how they go week to week. They don't have Raw. They don't have SmackDown. They don't have Dynamite. It's not what their product is. They push their stories forward with multi-man tags and factional warfare, and then, it gets the singles matches. And you don't wrestle that many singles matches in a year in Japan. And Shinsuke made that transition. That was a big one. Kenny Omega was another one. It was like, everything built up to these epic, unbelievable pay-per-view level matches. He didn't really wrestle like just random singles matches. It didn't really happen for Kenny. And I think there were ups and downs with his transition to being a weekly television character. And I think that's also, he was doing that with a company that is still now 5.5 years in. But like when Kenny became a weekly television character, he was doing it on a new show that was trying to find its footing and trying to figure out what they are. When Ospreay came over, I said the same thing. This is a guy that builds to these big matches. He had more matches because he would work a lot more than Okada or Shinsuke. But it was always building to something big. He didn't have that 8-minute, easy TV match where he's going to win tonight. That's not what Will was. And what are the promos going to be? And as I said, I think Ospreay's promos have felt very genuine. I think he's improved his promo game. I think loving wrestling the way he does, he fits well in AEW, and I think the people have taken to him, because obviously he's one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, and his matches are always spectacular. But B, I think there is a genuine feeling that he connects with the crowd. When Okada came over, my whole thing was, man, like this guy is synonymous with being a champion. This guy has been fairly called the best wrestler in the world at various times over the last decade. But what does that look like on a weekly television basis? So they make him a heel, and they put him with the most obvious heels in the company in Matt and Nick. And they're power hungry, and he's with them, and they get rid of Hangman, and they get rid of Kenny and all that stuff. So he becomes a heel. And Okada has always had personality. You didn't see a ton of it other than, the backstage interviews with the press after matches. And even then, it wasn't that much. But it's not like he was walking out at New Japan, cutting promos and being fun and having the people play off. No, he was in chaos. He was in chaos with Shinsuke and Ishii and Goto and all that. Like, that's what it was. They were a faction that tagged together. But they weren't coming out, open the show going, all right, welcome to blah, 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 and here's this go. That didn't exist. So when he comes to television, it's like, how does he fit into that? Well, he took on a similar personality to the Bucks where, a lot of sarcasm, laughing, joking, kind of being in on it. Like he is, if go watch, there's clips you can see. He's very funny and he has that personality, but that's not what he was in New Japan. And now, like I said, wow, he's really taken to, what is basically weekly wrestling television and what that entails and character work. And then I think it went too far. where it was too jokey and too comedic. And, you know, there was a curiosity of like, Okada's never done that before. That's funny. Like one line here or there, sure. But then it just became what he was. And I think it got away from the great wrestler. And, you know, you see the matches he's been in, and sure, the match with Pac was great. And the match with Eddie was solid. Last night I thought was a good TV match. Last night was the most, to me, and I know we had the Claudio match a couple weeks ago at Dynamite in Wales. But last night, to me, was the best Okada's on TV in a big spot match. It wasn't unbelievable. I don't think we'll be talking about it in 2 or 3 months. We don't have to be talking about it in 2 or 3 months. He had a very good match with an excellent wrestler in Kyle Fletcher to heat him up a little bit heading into the pay-per-view. And here's the thing. I would have wanted to do that weeks ago, but you can't, obviously, because they just had a pay-per-view. He was in the gauntlet. You know, there's only so much you can do. But let's put him out there, and okay, now let's get him on a pay-per-view, because Okada still has that feeling to me. And I'm sure others don't agree with this, because if you only know him from the last 6 months, or if you only really seen him on a consistent basis in the last 6 months, maybe you don't have that same perception. And I am trying to be fair that way. I have watched his career. I know who he is. I think he's so good in the ring that I expect him on every pay-per-view. Like, you got to get Okada on there. That's got to happen. But you might not think that way. Nerdy Dude just said, Okada honestly is just there for me, much like Ricochet. First the big deal, and then pretty much nothing. But that's just my opinion. And you know what? I don't knock that opinion. If you only know him from how we've seen him the last 6 months, he doesn't have that presence. He doesn't have that reputation in the last 6 months of being one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. I don't think he's been put on display that way. He can get that back in an instant. That is, I don't worry about that. Do I want to see a 4-way? Not really. He can work them, though. He'll be fine. He does, that's the thing. Like, he's adapted to everything. And almost to a fault. And I was thinking that as I was watching the show. Like, he's almost adapted to a fault. The thing with Mercedes, like, it's Okada. Like, it's Okada. Come on. He can have personality, but Jesus Christ, like, that was a Raw backstage segment from like 10 years ago. To do something with Private Party, like, ugh. But it's still Okada to me. He could still be that guy. You know what I liked? That I think is very much like weekly television wrestling that he did last night. He's playing to the crowd, right? Come on. And they're in on it. And he flips everybody off. Like they're going to do the big Rainmaker pose. That, to me, is excellent adaptation to weekly television wrestling and being a heel and messing with the crowd that way. Yeah, sure. Anybody can do that anywhere. I get that. But that is the evolution of where he's at as a character. And he had, very simply, he played with the crowd well. And even though he's done something similar before, they were biting on it, and boom, he got him. That's just character work. You're not going to see as much of that in New Japan. It's about the epicness of their singles matches. That's not the case on weekly television. He's not going to have a bad match, but I don't think he needs to light up the world with Kyle Fletcher in a match that is not the main event of Dynamite. That doesn't have a lot of build. That's just being smart. You might call that coasting, or that's just being smart. He worked a very good match. At the same time, and I'm going to get to this right now, he took Brainbusters on the rail and before that on the apron. He returned for the main event. He won the match at the buzzer. He returned for the main event. He seemed okay. After the main event is over, we go backstage to find Pac and Will Ospreay fighting, and there's a brain buster on the boxes, and they sold it like he was dead, which is the correct thing to do. And the officials are stopping everything. But I'm going like, hey, like 40 minutes ago, you had Okada get dropped on his head on the apron, and it looked gnarly. Then he got dropped on the railing. Sure, a little padding, but it looked gnarly. And then he was out there for the main, and then you want me to get worried about Will Ospreay getting dropped on a box on his head, which you should be. But that's where there's a disconnect where Okada probably shouldn't have taken 2 brainbusters to come back to win a match and then show up in the main event if a big angle to close the show, or not close the show, but be towards the end of the show, is Will Ospreay getting dropped on his head with the same exact move. Because now you've taken away the impact of that move, because I've seen it twice in also very dangerous situations done to a guy who won a match and then returned to come out and help, in a segment where he looked okay to me. So now you've taken away what could have been a bigger impact for Pac dropping Ospreay on his head on those storage boxes backstage. Okada taking 2 brainbusters really didn't matter in the big picture of that match. So you didn't need to do them. And I would have to think that as producers or agents are putting things together, like I would think everybody, should know that the big angle, Pac once again dropping Will on his head, like he did with the Poison Rana last week, like, hey, we're doing a brainbuster in the backstage. That should take precedence over a match that is just there to heat Okada up for his title match at the pay-per-view. So that's a miss. That doesn't have to happen. Save the big spot to sell the pay-per-view, not to just put in the match somewhere. And obviously not to be repetitive with it. Okada 6 months in is doing fine. I think he could be better. I think the story he's in with the Bucks, he's taken on too much of their personality. And maybe with someone like Jack Perry, who has now come across as the most serious one of the group, maybe that takes away the opportunity for Okada to be the ace of the group. Because he doesn't come across that way, even if he is. He comes across as a guy who's goofing around with the Young Bucks, who control when he's in the ring during his matches. Part of me says, hey, you don't want to have too many epic matches because you'll get cheered. I get that. But I would like Okada to be kind of tapped back into the reputation he's always had. It's not bad, and it's only 6 months, but I think I know what he's capable of. B-May makes a great point. I think there's a story to be told when Kenny comes back between the two. Absolutely. And you know what? Maybe that's part of it. Because I'm saying it's not bad, but maybe that's the guy who snaps Okada back. Are you done screwing around with these guys? I did that for years. Yeah, I had some fun times with them, but when I had to get serious, I did. Are you still able to do that? Is the Rainmaker still in there? Or just, are you their comedy buddy? Are you their comic relief? Say that to Okada. Because there could be nothing funny about Okada and Kenny Omega. There could be a new chapter where Kenny is in the spot he's in, where he's the 100% clear babyface and Okada's the 100% clear heel. They haven't had that yet. It got blurry, but really that started as Okada babyface, Kenny heel. This is going to flip. This is a TV presentation. There's a hell of a story to tell. They'll have the footage. I would assume New Japan would work with them on that, as long as they don't get a copyright strike on Twitter. They have that story to tell. And maybe that's what snaps Okada back into it. Nerdy dude. Maybe it's just me, but I honestly think the whole Young Bucks storyline is going on for way too long at this point. But again, that's just me. I think I It's not malaise. It's dragged maybe a little. I still think they're the most hateable guys on the show because I think they just annoy me. Like, and you would say, of course, they're supposed to. Yeah, it might have it's dragged, but like once again, the power struggle is still very confusing to me. That stuff I don't understand. What is up with Jon Moxley? Where do you think this is going? He's got Marina Shafir with him as a heater. I admit to being skeptical about that. I like it more now. I like her as the silent killer. I like her as the person that you don't want to mess with. That he just knows, yeah, she's with me. She'll take care of business. Like there is a clear respect level that he has for her and her badassery. Get out of our way. We're doing whatever the hell we want. But what's the mission statement? You know, there's very much, it's bubbling under the surface. He wants Darby. Why does he want Darby? Well, last week it seemed to be calling him out. This week, still looking for you. I don't want to apply pressure, I will. But he put Darby over. Got in the ring with this kid. He plays the game the right way. Is this about fighting Darby Allin? Or is this about recruiting Darby Allin? Because the tones of what Mox is saying is, I don't like how things are going here. I don't like what this company has become. And this is not ripping down AEW or a rah-rah speech or an anti-AEW speech, which we've seen other people do. This is just very much like, I don't like the culture. Too many people are comfortable here kind of thing. I'm not going to have that here. I want a culture change that I'm going to bring about because people need it. People need to be checked. I think that's what he's getting at. People need to be checked. So maybe he's looking for people that are like him. I don't know if anybody else has brought this point up, but it might not be about fighting Darby Allin. It might be about standing side by side with Darby Allin. Hey, I want you for what I'm doing. I like how you do it. Do it side by side with me. Listen to me. Have a conversation with me. Hear me out. And then if Darby says no, then they fight. And that's going to be good too. But I like the idea of more of a recruitment. Darby has not gone heel. Darby, for the majority of his time in AEW, has been aligned with Sting. Can't be more babyface than that. People love Darby Allin. There's a thought of freshening things up there. I don't know if they would do it, but I could see Mox continuing to kind of go, I need to build an army. I need to build a whatever. And I have heard of I guess Alvarez said it or whatever, like what this character is supposed to be from this movie Romper Stomper and maybe what that makes Marina Shafir. And it's a little... Go look up that movie. I don't think Mox is going all the way in that direction. Things can be inspired by, it doesn't mean they're fully carried out that way. There could just be a cadence, a look, a feel of a certain character. You go, I could take something of that. I'm not taking their whole philosophy. I'm not taking the direction, the angle of that movie, the storyline of that movie. But there's things I can take that then I can mold into the character I'm trying to play right now. He's interesting. It's way more compelling than I think he's been for a while. I always thought there was a dangerous heel in Mox. And God, there's been so much flip-flopping with BCC. Here's also what I love. And I know it's been like talked around. Where's the BCC at? Because Danielson's out there watching Yuta and watching Claudio, and they were out there for him when he won the world title at All In, and he's doing commentary, and he gets involved in the beatdown. Like, they're all together, but like, have they let Mox kind of go and do his own thing? And if I missed some throwaway line on commentary, please tell me. But that's kind of been the thing with the BCC, is there's like been this broken line that connects everything that they've done. It's like, well, wait, what happened? Well, now they're good guys again. Now they're bad guys again. And at times you can position the gray area-ness, but I don't know. Like, can that be explained a little bit? Hey, we're letting Mox do his own thing. We came to an understanding. He wants to go do his own thing. We shook hands, and that's what it is. So Brian is still associated with the Blackpool Combat Club. He's still associated with Yuta and Cesaro. But don't let's just like leave that hanging. So like they're not going to run into each other anymore. They're not having conversations anymore. I don't have a problem with him leaving the group and him leaving the group with an understanding. Just fill that gap in for me. Hey, this isn't what it used to be. Mox is going to go his own way. We respect that. End of story. That's just something. And if they come back together and it's, you know what, now the BCC has gotten in, Mox's way, okay, cool. We can come back to that. But it seems like he's doing his own thing right now. So explain, at least as it relates to the guys he had been walking out with for months, for over a year, why he's on his own now. Show your work on that one. I don't have a problem with Mox not laying it all out clearly. I like that he's being a little mysterious. I like that he is being a little cryptic. Because, like I said, maybe he's trying to recruit Darby Allin, not fight him. Who is he going to be pointed at? Who's the first victim if it's not Darby? Who is a problem for Jon Moxley? Who's a problem for whatever this group is going to become? Who does he point it towards? I like that we're not quite sure yet. I like that we're still learning bits and pieces of the mission statement. I think it makes you tune in. I think they hammered that home. I even like that Tony Schiavone's like, he looked right at me and said, it's not my company anymore. Obviously, it's not my company. But, people made such a big deal that, like, he thought he was talking to Tony Khan. Like, that's a message to everybody. Tony Schiavone just happened to be holding the microphone at the time. He wasn't cutting a promo directed at Tony Schiavone. He was cutting it at everybody who was watching. He was cutting it towards the company as a whole. He was sending a warning shot out, if you would. I want to know more about that. Do they make their presence felt at the pay-per-view this weekend? Darby's got a title shot at Grand Slam. If Danielson gets through Jack Perry, guess what? There it is. What if Moxley tries to get to him before that of like, hey, bring that championship. Go get that championship. We need that championship. We need people like you to have that championship. And if he says no, maybe he screws with it and we do get Moxley and Darby. I don't think they have to necessarily go right into a match. If it's more of the idea of recruiting Darby and Darby listening, and then going, you know what? No, I don't want to. And then Moxley messes with him at Grand Slam. And then you still have time to get to that match. Maybe at Wrestle Dream in Washington. Moxley Darby in Washington sounds pretty good to me. And there should be no rush to get there. There's some story to be told here. And maybe Darby does end up side by side with them. Maybe that does happen. Very solid show last night. I think they've built a lot of things very well. It's an 8-match card. Obviously, they'll add stuff to All Out. 8-match card, though, leading into the weekend. We're going to have a full All Out preview for you tomorrow right here on the Wrestling Mat. Going to hit this very quickly. About a half hour before we got on the air, Netflix released the Mr. McMahon documentary trailer. Okay, that's enough. That's good. I don't need to see that guy anymore. Good God, what is that on the screen right now? Holy hell. So that, as I think I have mentioned, where he is sitting is a ring 15 feet from the old Bump Studio. That's called Squash Alley. He sat there for a while and did those interviews. I believe usually at night. They had that thing blocked off. You couldn't get in there. Surprised, and that's lighting and all that stuff too, and sound. But that's where he did those. And as far as I know, that was a long time ago. When those, I want to say, at least a year and a half. I mean, geez, think of when he was gone. I want to say that's 2 years at least old. That footage you're seeing right there, and the lack of mustache and hair color and all that stuff. I think it's at least 2 years old. So, right, he was gone in July of 2020. It's before that. It's more than 2 years old, that footage that you just saw, or that picture you just saw. You didn't get a lot out of the big names in that trailer of what they're going to say, or, a lot of Hulk, everything he touched turns to gold, brother. Like, sure. But you can see how it started in the trailer of here's all the, oh my God, he was amazing as promoter, and then where it goes. We will see what that looks like. We are going to be reviewing every episode here on the Wrestling Mat, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Very likely going to be membership tier kind of stuff, as I'll give you some insights on what I know. I don't know anything about the doc other than I recognize where that thing was shot. So I will be tuning in. What is it, 20 days away? We'll be reviewing every episode here. So we'll all watch that one together. Yeah. I know that it was held and stopped and redone. Like, all that stuff came out of, it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. And now it's going to happen. I guess because he's not with the company anymore. So you just, okay, sure. It doesn't look like it'll end very positively based on what we saw in the trailer. But we'll talk about that in the future. I'll be back tomorrow. Going to do the all-out preview here at 1 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Go check out the WrestlingMatchShow.com for past episodes. Changed up the format a little bit this week, kind of hitting more of the major talking points of the day. We talked about blood a lot on Tuesday's show and being able to bring that back. Swerve's contract, reaction to that, Gunther's presentation, the debut of Joe Tessitore giving WWE a much stronger announcer roster. Yesterday, we talked a lot more about NXT things, where things stand with the NXT WWE relationship, where NXT is heading into the CW deal. A lot of that stuff covered in the last couple days. Go check that out in our archives, thewrestlingmatchshow.com. If you are listening on the Believe Network and podcast, thank you for that. But if not, please make sure you subscribe where you get your podcast, because this show is in podcast form. As soon as the video ends, it gets uploaded that way. And you're going, wait a minute, I could hear this beforehand? Yes, you can. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. But if you're going, wait, I'm listening to the podcast right now. Thank you, first of all. But if you want more, come over to thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Subscribe, turn on your notifications, become a member, starting at just $2.99. A lot of content coming your way this month. I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, those reviews of the Netflix docs will be at the Camper level and higher. So Matt Camper level and the main event level, some bonus content for you there. But think about becoming a member. A great way to support the show. And I'll be back tomorrow to talk about wrestling even more. We'll preview All Out tomorrow at 1 Eastern right here on the Wrestling Mat.